Greetings, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to today's edition of Tales from Outer Space, where I take stories from across the internet and read them for your entertainment. This particular story is called What's in the Box, written by Majestic Teach 6677. What's in the box? Human crewman Jeff asked excitedly. I don't know, Cargo Masterman Chai answered honestly. But are we sure its contents are legal? Jeff followed up quickly and overly hopeful. It passed all previous inspections and still has the official seal. Manchai grumbled at the human. That doesn't mean the human started to object, so Manchai quickly cut him off. No, the clearly irritated cargo master responded. It means that as long as the seal is intact and not tampered with, we don't have to inspect it, and we are not responsible if the contents don't match the manifest. Also, don't you humans have a saying, curiosity killed the cat? Sure, but satisfaction brought them back, Jeff retorted quickly. I know you humans are new to the galaxy and want to see everything, but that doesn't mean that we have to open every single cargo crate so that you can see what's inside, Manchai stated flatly, as he turned one of his 3 eye stalks to glare directly at Jeff. True, but that last crate had all the crazy blinking light thingies, Jeff said with a bright look on his face. Who knows what's in this case? Those were Nalthraxian sex toys, and what you called salad forks were, physical stimulators? The need for visual stimulation as well as physical, Manchai responded with a shake of his eye stalk. He hoped the movement would mimic the shaking head of a disappointed human parent. I thought the fact that they were made of flexible synthetic rubber would have given you the clue that they weren't food. Yeah, that was strange, Jeff said thoughtfully. Definitely wouldn't have worked well for spaghetti, but you never know. Some sapiens might have delicate teeth that would be harmed by metal utensils. Manchai decided not to respond, as the human was clearly not going to be reasonable today. He simply waved a tentacle to the loader to bring up the next crate. The manifest declared random foodstuffs from Albera Prime, and his eye stalks drooped. His new human crew would likely want to examine everything to see if it would make the list of things to try. With luck, the seal would be intact and... Damn! The seals weren't just broken, they were mangled, and the sides of the crate damaged as if someone had scraped one side against a wall. Clearly, the recipient of impact damage due to negligent handling. It would need to be unpacked, checked before loading into the cargo bay. Jeff would have an unexpected and necessary excuse to indulge his curiosity. While curiosity made humans a bit frustrating, it was the concept of we'll try anything once that made them truly infuriating at times. Tell the humans something is food, and they'll want to eat it, sometimes before anyone scans to check if it's compatible with human biology. At times, it made the officers wonder if they had adult crew members or if they had toddlers who wouldn't stop putting random things into their mouths. Jeff, full unpacking of this crate and inspection, Manchai called out, which resulted in far too much glee from the human. And take extra precautions. This is marked as foodstuffs and may be delicate. Yes, Cargo Master, Jeff called out as he popped the top and the crate and looked inside. If they were lucky, the packages would be sealed in plain wrappers so the human's imagination wouldn't be spurred. Stars forgive them if something actually broke open because Jeff would likely ask to try eat whatever it was, which would greatly complicate the cargo claim. Was it really broken and insurance should pay, or did the human accidentally damage the packaging to try the contents? Thus, insurance would deny the claim and dump the costs on the ship. Insurance trying to weasel out of a claim is a universal constant and keeps getting worse, Manchai thought to himself, frustrated that he would even need to consider how insurance might view things. He simply turned his attention back to his data state and was relieved to see that they were nearing the end of the loading process. Only 6 more crates after this one. Manchai, Jeff called out in a small voice filled with wonder. I need your help. Well, crap, the cargo master thought to himself as he looked up from his data state and turned all eye stalks to stare at the ceiling for a moment. Something interesting probably broke open, and now I'll have to explain why you can't try to eat it. What is this thing? Jeff said with eyes gleaming. Manchai slowly turned one eye stalk to the human, who was holding something up. He then blinked with that eye stalk and whipped his other around so all 3 eye stalks stared at the human in bewilderment. Jeff was holding up a lizard with 6 insect-like legs. The body of the lizard was about 4 inches wide and about a foot long before ending in a short stubby tail no more than 3 inches long. The head of the lizard was slightly triangular, with 1 large eye on the forehead and 2 small eyes located on the sides. The center being the creature's primary visual receptor, and the smaller one simply used to detect motion and assist in depth perception. What are you doing? Minchai yelled out with concern. Those things can be dangerous. They're stupid and would try to eat anything. Put it down. Okay, Jeff said slowly, while lowering the lizard a little bit. But what is it? It's a chunker lizard, a delicacy food animal for the Yavarians. Quite rare and obscenely expensive in this part of the galaxy, the cargo master answered quickly, before the credit coin dropped in his brain. Wait, that thing is alive. We aren't allowed to transport live cargo. We'll have to seize it. Does that mean that we can keep it? Jeff asked with a shockingly bright expression on his face. This isn't what seize means. We can't transport it and... Minchai looked down at the manifest for extended info on this particular shipment. Oh, by the stars, we're the third ship to handle this cargo, so it's already beyond the point of origin. The chunker lizards aren't from Albera Prime, which means the paperwork is false, and the previous ship has already left the system, so we can't return it to them. I'll inform the station dockmaster, but I can almost guarantee they'll ask us to dispose of the thing. Jeff looked even more excited. So, we can keep it? No, that's not what I'm saying, Minchai responded gruffly. We need to get rid of it. Perhaps, if we're lucky, there's a Yavarian on the station who'll be happy to get free expensive meal from home. If not, we'll have to euthanize it and dispose of it. But it's a living being, Jeff objected. Let's not get into a debate over what species eat meat and go straight for logic to dissuade this line of thought, Minchai thought to himself. He pondered the various options and then went for the most obvious. They weren't equipped to care for such a thing. Do you know how to care for it? He asked the human. Well, the crater was packed in as some food and water, Jeff said as he gently put the lizard back into the crate. That's a start. So much for logic, Minchai thought to himself. 2 Terran weeks later. Jeff's going to be late for work again, Supervisor Cork informed Minchai. No, why? Minchai asked with clear irritation. He bumped his head, waking up, and stopped off in med bay for pain meds, Gok explained. That's the 3rd time in the past 10 days. I still can't believe he gave up half his bunk space to create an enclosure for that damn chunker lizard, Minchai grumbled. Barely enough space to slide into the bunk with that stupid lizard living above the bed. At least the lizard didn't bite him again, Guak responded, with a wave of his tentacle that indicated their agreement with Minchai at being annoyed at the human. You'd think he'd learn to not try hand-feed an animal with poor depth perception and the need to rent a brain cell to do anything more than bask on a rock. He claims that hand-feeding the creature will encourage bonding, Minchai explained with skepticism. He's also ordered custom leash to try. Walkies? Yeah, I heard that one. The only bonding he'll get from that thing is if it decides his arm is something it can mate with, Guak said with a snort. I've been told that in the wild they try to mate with warm rocks or sticks. I've heard that as well, Minchai said with a sigh. When I tried to explain to Jeff that chunker lizards are like overgrown Terran cockroaches with less intelligence, do you know what he said? I have a feeling the answer is going to make me crave an intoxicant, Guak said with a groan. He said that many humans keep colonies of cockroaches as pets. Minchai barked out as clear exasperation. And that they make good pets. Explain to me again why we hired him. He wants to see the galaxy, so he works for less than half the standard rates, Minchai answered. That was this initial selling point, and it turns out that humans are 30% more efficient than standard crew members when they aren't distracted. My contact in Intergalactic Holdings says much the same. Humans will still be a bargain to hire once they stop being excited to see the greater galaxy and insist on standard rates. Well, the cost picture without humans might change if Vlad gets his way, Guak explained. Oh, Minchai inquired with concern. Since you let Jeff have a pet, Vlad wants one, Guak answered glumly. He's looking at pictures of Chucklux with dreamy expression. Are you shitting me? Minchai roared out. But Chucklux have more teeth than brain cells and can operate in bite first and ask questions, never mythology. Just having one on board would get us banned from 113 star systems due to the infestation risk. I know, Guak said while nodding an eye stalk in agreement. But it seems Chucklux rank highly on human pet desirability on the basis of fuzziness, being lap lizard, and a resemblance to something called a bumblebee without wings. End of story. Story number 2. Earth is Unconquerable by Atra55. Professor Mechana, you are regarded as one of the greatest sociologists and historian of the Free Stellar Legion. You are one of the acclaimed figureheads of the cultural rebirth of our nation. You might be one of the most famous Villani outside of the military, and a few days ago you released your first book aimed at the general public. Now, may you remind our audience what you chose to title it. Earth is unconquerable. You are certainly not unaware of this inflammatory title caused the stir. After all, you took part in a conquest of Earth yourself 40 years ago, did you not? I suppose you could call it that. It was a military campaign that resulted in the Legion taking control of Earth. I earned quite a few promotions and decorations from my valiant fight against the Altari Empire, and served in the occupation force for 7 years, before we were kicked out by the Whelpers. By this definition of conquest, there were to this day 13 different conquests of Earth. But that is not your definition, I take it? No. You see, while I was a soldier for a time, my vocation today is the study of societies. And from this point of view, it was Earth and the humans who conquered the galaxy. That is quite the claim. Well, it is very much a hyperbole, considering known space only encompasses 1/10 of a millionth of the galaxy. But you understand my point. Actually, I don't. The UNSS has only been independent for 2 years, and I don't feel very conquered right now. The United Nations of the Soul Sector are far from a superpower indeed. But I'm not talking about them. I'm talking about Earth. I'm afraid I don't follow. That much is clear. You are rather young, are you not? In your 30s. You probably didn't even fight during your service. I assure you that was not an insult. I'm truly glad the youth of these days can get a job outside a factory without risking their lives. I lost too many good friends to support the old system, unlike most fools my age. But you can't remember before the Tlax conquest. Neither can I, of course, but the elders of my time did. And compared to that, I assure you that we are nothing more than a human colony. That's absurd. Humans, will you let your guest talk? Yes. Earth is, as you know, classified as a paradise world, the only one of its kind. Its riches are plentiful, and its ecosystems are widely used nowadays as templates for terraforming of most worlds. Hell, that's literally what terraforming means. So your point is that Earth's biosphere has conquered the cosmos? No, actually. What I mean is that this clemency has allowed the inhabitants of Earth to develop a culture, or rather, a plethora of cultures, unlike anything else in the galaxy. It is the concept of what a culture even is that conquered the universe. When the Altari discovered Earth nearly 2.5 centuries ago, they conquered it without much trouble. But then something peculiar happened. Rather than destroying the human population or enslaving it, they just reorganized it. What do you mean? Well, the Altari occupation force didn't impose their model of society onto the humans. Rather, they adopted local concepts. Money, taxes, citizenship, property, all were turned into tools of control by the invaders. Why did they do that? Well, the truth is that doing things the human way was less efficient, but far more pleasant. Soon corruption and individualism became rampant in the soon-to-be empire. Rather than trying to maximize productivity, the officers in charge of Earth used their status and power to enjoy the local life. Buying or requisitioning properties, patronizing arts and philosophy, getting a taste of the local cuisines and beverages. Of course, the top of the totem pole didn't take this very well, and so the corrupted first wave was replaced by a second one, which soon fell to the same vices. After the third wave, there are records of Altari governments trying to rectify the situation. But it was too late. A coup led to the foundation of the Altari Empire, based largely on the model of ancient Terran China. With the very resources earned from Earth, much of the empire soon reached a level of habitability, making the human lifestyle viable on other planets. Then the pale blue jewel fell to the hands of another species, and then another, then the Altari again, and then another. And each time a new state took over, they assimilated themselves into human culture in decades at most. Earth has become the cultural and even scientific center of the cosmos, as each invader injected more and more resources into its institutions. Eventually, those who had adopted the human system began spreading to their own dominions, just like Talachian did to us. And here we are today, with a society that might as well have emerged on Earth, despite never having been under their control. Earth is unconquerable. Taking it over is simply being conquered yourself. End of story. I'd quickly like to thank our Tier 5 channel members, Casper Arnholt, John Creighton, Manatharia, 050, Dragzoon WRE, and Elijah Silvercross. Thank you very much.